President-elect Donald Trump picking Florida Congressman Mike Waltz to be his national security advisor. It's according to multiple sources, and the reports that Florida Senator Marco Rubio expected to be named Secretary of State for a closer look at the geopolitical threats facing President-elect Trump in his second term. Former Wisconsin Congressman Mike Gallagher, he is now head of defense for Palantir Technologies, a distinguished fellow with the Hudson Institute. He's got a piece that we're going to talk about in a second. But, Mike, before we even get there, let's talk about some of these names. I'd love to get your thoughts. I think most of these names are actually relatively aligned with your thoughts about national security and specifically China.
Yeah, I think these are fantastic picks by Donald Trump thus far. If you care about standing up to China, if you want an aggressive approach to Salafi jihadists in the Middle East, if you want a strong border, if you want more aggressive action against the narco terrorists south of our border or on fentanyl, this is a fantastic team that's shaping up. I served with Mike Waltz on the Armed Services Committee, on the Intelligence Committee. He's a veteran. He has a deep well of experience. He's an incredible communicator when it comes to taking complex national security issues and talking about them in a way that resonates with the American people. And he has private sector experience. That's a rare combination. I think he'll do very, very well. And he sees the China threat clearly. I was constantly impressed with Mike Waltz during my time in Congress. Similar, Elise Stefanik will be fantastic at the UN. An unapologetic voice for American leadership in the world. She's going to put Russia and China and Iran on the defense. I think she'll bring a reform agenda to the UN, which is in desperate need of reform. And then Rubio as Secretary of State, obviously right now as vice chair of the Intel Committee. He's passionate about foreign policy. He's made it a priority in the Senate. I think beyond a clear-eyed view on China and a strong stance in support of Israel, what Rubio can bring to Foggy Bottom is a focus on an area that's been neglected for decades now, which is our own backyard, Central America, Southern America, restoring some version of the Monroe Doctrine in the present day, tackling Russian and Chinese influence in our own hemisphere. So this is 3 for 3 right now. Donald Trump, he's picked fantastic people, and I hope he continues this momentum, and we have a chance to restore deterrence. It's very good news.
In terms of China, though, because that's been sort of your big issue for a very long time now, how do you think that these names change or impact whatever the relationship looks like? And how much does it turn from being a competition to being demonstrable adversaries?
I think it will turn to recognizing reality, which is that this isn't some polite tennis match that we call a competition. It is a new Cold War with existential stakes. China is trying to displace us as the world's sole superpower, trying to destroy our system of alliances in the Indo-PACOM in particular, but that's just a stepping off point for realizing its global ambitions. So I think this team, again, if this trend continues, will have a far more realistic view of not only China's global ambitions, but also how to deal with them. That starts with investing in a credible military deterrent, getting very creative, thinking like insurgents in the Indo-Pacific, thinking about how we get more bang for our buck on the military side. But it also continues into the diplomatic realm, being willing to stand across from Xi Jinping and his emissaries and push back on their claims, and not being lured into this sort of diplomatic dance where we take our foot off the gas just for promises of future meetings, which I really think explains the last 2 years of the Biden administration.
Mike, can we talk about budgets for a second? I want to talk about the defense budget, because this is now something that I imagine you will have a view on and perhaps even want to influence ultimately, which is to say that we're all trying to figure out, what tax revenues are going to look like in the future under this new administration, what spending is going to look like. One of the big buckets of spending is defense money. There's a lot of folks from the private sector that are now going to be entering this administration with thoughts about and also advisory thoughts in terms of Elon Musk and others about what this should look like. Do you think that defense spending ultimately goes up, should go up? Do you think it can go down? Do you say to yourself, there's so much fat in the system that there's a way to do this better? I imagine there's new technologies and things, given that you work at Palantir, that you'd like them to adopt that they haven't thus far. But ultimately, from a dollar perspective, what does that look like?
I think the budget can at least keep pace with inflation, which then buys you time to make serious reforms, because to the spirit of your question, I don't think there's going to be a massive infusion of new resources, which is why you have to get creative. You can do things like leveraging cutting edge software in order to automate the tail in order to reinvest in the tooth, right? Using automation so that that the largest branch of the military, DoD civilians at 900,000 people, don't consume as many resources, and the resources are consumed by warfighters and weapons and the things that actually scare the crap out of Xi Jinping. So that's one thing you can do. The other thing you can do is just use all the money that's appropriated by Congress that the Pentagon doesn't spend, upwards of $15 billion a year, and invest it in the right things like critical munitions and ships. And then also you can enforce existing law to ensure that the Pentagon is buying commercial items first. There's existing law that forces a commercial preference onto government agencies. The only problem is they ignore it and violate it. Listen, the reason SpaceX was able to deliver the Falcon 9 rocket for $400 million when NASA estimated it would cost $4 billion is because they use commercial procedures and practices. So I do think the next Secretary of Defense needs an aggressive reform agenda, and it's going to take their personal involvement as well as them recruiting the best and the brightest from the tech sector in order to change the world's biggest bureaucracy, which is very, very resistant to change. And only that type of leadership backed by the president can get us that type of change.
We're going to have to run, but one last piece, because you've lived in Congress. So many of the component parts of the defense budget, and by the way, so many other parts of the budget writ large, are, you know, different states and different Congress folks are beneficiaries of that. And so the question is, how do you break that conundrum, which is to say that you know, there are going to be lots of markets where folks that used to be in your role are going to say, we need you to keep spending over here.
I think you have to remind the American people and go directly to the American people that this is all about national security. It's not about jobs. It's not about parochial political interests. It's about defending America from the communists, the Salafi jihadists, the authoritarians, and the narco traffickers who want to destroy us. And everybody needs to understand the stakes. If Xi Jinping wants to go to war with us over Taiwan in 2027, we have 2 years to restore our credible military deterrent. We can't play stupid parochial political games. We have a once-in-a-generation opportunity right now to reform the Pentagon and our entire national security apparatus, just like Eisenhower did in the early 50s. And that was the old Cold War. This is the new Cold War. We need to recognize that it exists and then do everything we need to do to win it.